ever wondered why, no matter how hard you try, your life seems to circle back to the same pain, the same betrayals, the same invisible wounds? What if I told you that the answer isn't just about what you do, but about who you allow to stand beside you? Here's a shocking truth. According to a study published in the journal Social, Psychological, and Personality Science, the people you surround yourself with can literally predict your happiness, your success, and even your lifespan. But what if some of those people are quietly poisoning your soul? What if the very ones you trust are the architects of your suffering? If you click away now, you might never see the invisible chains that bind you. But if you stay, you'll discover the 7 types of people you must cut out of your life right now, if you ever want to be free. This isn't just another list. This is a journey into the shadow, into the hidden corners of your psyche, guided by the wisdom of Carl Jung, Freud, Adler, Maslow, and Frankl. Because the truth is, the people you keep are the mirrors of your unconscious. They are the living symbols of your deepest fears, your unhealed wounds, and your secret hopes. And until you see them for what they are, you will keep reliving the same story over and over again. Let's begin with the competitor. On the surface, they seem like your friend, your ally, maybe even your biggest supporter. But underneath, they are locked in a silent war with you. Every success you achieve is a threat to their fragile ego. Every joy you experience is a reminder of their own emptiness. Jung called this the shadow projection, the parts of ourselves we cannot accept, so we project them onto others. The competitor is not just competing with you, they are at war with their own shadow. And as long as you keep them close, you will never feel safe to shine. You will always feel the need to shrink, to apologize for your light. Ask yourself, how many times have you dimmed your brilliance to make someone else comfortable? How many times have you felt guilty for your own happiness? The competitor will never celebrate you. They will only tolerate you until you outshine them. Then there is the user, the one who only calls when they need something, the one who drains your energy, your time, your resources, and gives nothing in return. Freud would call this a narcissistic supply. You are not a person to them, but a means to an end. The user is a master of disguise. They know how to make you feel needed, important, indispensable. But the moment you have nothing left to give, they vanish. And you are left empty, wondering if you ever mattered at all. The user teaches you a brutal lesson. Love is not a transaction. Your worth is not measured by what you can provide. But as long as you keep the user in your life, you will always feel like you are not enough, unless you are giving, sacrificing, bleeding for someone else. Next comes the blamer, the one who never takes responsibility, the one who turns every mistake, every failure, every disappointment into your fault. Adler believed that the need to blame others is rooted in deep feelings of inferiority. The blamer cannot face their own flaws, so they make you the scapegoat. They rewrite reality to protect their fragile self-image. But here's the cost. If you let the blamer stay, you will start to doubt your own reality. You will question your own memory, your own judgment, your own sanity. This is not just toxic, it is soul-destroying. The blamer is a thief of your self-trust. And then the complainer, the one who finds a problem for every solution. The one who sees the world through a lens of perpetual victimhood. Maslow would say that the complainer is stuck at the bottom of the hierarchy of needs, trapped in fear, unable to see possibility. The complainer is addicted to their own misery. They will drag you down into the pit with them, convincing you that hope is naive, that dreams are foolish, that nothing ever changes. But here's the truth. The complainer is terrified of change, because change means responsibility, and responsibility means power. If you let the complainer stay, you will start to see the world as they do, a place of scarcity, of danger, of endless disappointment. But the most dangerous of all is the abuser, the one who wounds you, not just with words or fists, but with silence, with neglect, with manipulation. The abuser is a master of psychological warfare. They know how to make you doubt your own worth, your own reality, your own right to exist. Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of the concentration camps, wrote that the last of human freedoms is the ability to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. But the abuser tries to steal even that. They want to break your spirit, to make you believe that you are powerless, that you are nothing. If you let the abuser stay, you will lose yourself. You will become a ghost in your own life. The manipulator is subtler. They don't attack you directly. They twist reality, play mind games, use guilt, fear, and obligation to control you. Erich Fromm called this emotional vampirism. The manipulator feeds on your confusion, your self-doubt, your need for approval. They are experts at making you feel responsible for their happiness, their pain, their choices. But here's the secret. The manipulator is terrified of being seen, because if you see them clearly, their power vanishes. If you let the manipulator stay, you will always feel like you are walking on eggshells, never sure what is real, never sure who you are. And finally, the hypocrite, the one who preaches virtue but practices vice, the one who demands loyalty but betrays you in secret. The hypocrite is the embodiment of Jung's persona, the mask we wear to hide our true selves. The hypocrite is not just lying to you, they are lying to themselves. But their lies are contagious. If you let the hypocrite stay, you will start to doubt the very meaning of truth, of integrity, of trust. You will start to believe that everyone is wearing a mask, that nothing is real. So why do we keep these people in our lives? Why do we tolerate the pain, the betrayal, the slow erosion of our spirit? Jung would say it is because we are afraid to face our own shadow. We are afraid to be alone with ourselves. We would rather endure the familiar pain than risk the unknown. But here's the paradox. The moment you cut these people out, you begin to heal. You begin to reclaim your power, your voice, your life. Have you ever felt like you're living someone else's story? Like your life is being written by the people around you instead of by your own hand? Why does nobody talk about the cost of loyalty to the wrong people? Why do we glorify forgiveness but never talk about the courage it takes to walk away? The truth is, cutting people out is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of self-respect. It is the ultimate declaration. I am worthy of love, of respect, of peace. But here's the hardest part. When you cut these people out, you will feel pain. You will feel guilt, fear, even grief. Because you are not just losing a person, you are losing a part of your old self. The self that tolerated abuse, that accepted crumbs, that believed it was unworthy. But on the other side of that pain is freedom. On the other side is the life you were meant to live. Frankl wrote that when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. The 7 people you need to cut out are not just obstacles, they are invitations. Invitations to grow, to heal, to become who you truly are. Every time you say no to the competitor, the user, the blamer, the complainer, the abuser, the manipulator, and the hypocrite, you are saying yes to yourself. You are choosing to write your own story. So I ask you, who in your life fits these patterns? Who have you been making excuses for out of fear, out of habit, out of hope that they will change? What would your life look like if you finally let them go? Imagine the space you would create for joy, for creativity, for real connection. Imagine the person you could become if you were no longer weighed down by the pain of others. If you've made it this far, I want to know who truly understood the message. Leave the phrase, "I choose my own story," in the comments, and let's see how many of you really grasp what it means to reclaim your life and your power. If this video made you question something, if it made you see things from a different angle, like and subscribe, because this is just the beginning. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, the people you walk with shape the path you walk. Choose wisely, for your soul is at stake. What if I told you that the most dangerous war you'll ever fight is happening right now? Not in the world, not between nations, not between people, but within your own mind. What if I said that enemy soldiers live quietly as your thoughts? that they whisper self-doubt and confusion right beneath the surface of your daily life, but you call it personality, that they lie to you every single day and you believe them, because these lies don't show up holding weapons. They show up wrapped in memory, emotion, shame, and habit. These are the mind traps, invisible prisons, psychological mirages, cognitive distortions. Whatever name you give them, one truth remains. They distort your reality and trick you into thinking that your pain is your nature, but it's not. And if you don't learn to see these traps for what they are, you won't just suffer. You'll suffer silently. You'll sabotage love, purpose, healing, the things you're craving, and then you'll blame yourself for not being strong enough to be happy. But stay with me through this entire video and something in you will break, something that was always supposed to. These are the 14 poisonous thought patterns every human falls into, and the beginning of how to climb out. Let me ask you this. Have you ever woken up with a heavy chest and no clear reason why? Have you ever received 5 compliments and 1 subtle critique, and somehow the critique became gospel? Have you ever convinced yourself that you're unlovable because one person walked away? These aren't random thoughts. These are echoes of internal scripts laced with distorted logic. They sound like you because they live inside you, but make no mistake, these distortions don't reveal the truth about the world. They reveal something more vulnerable, the way your past has shaped how you survive the world. Legendary psychologist Aaron Beck, father of cognitive therapy, alongside David Burns and others, once mapped these out, and today we're peeling them back layer by layer. There's a trap in your mind that says unless you're perfect, you're nothing. All or nothing thinking, the black and white lens that makes you either a success or a failure, an angel or a villain, perfect or pathetic. It's not just a cliche, it's a shield, because somewhere deep in you, there's a voice that can't make peace with imperfection. Carl Jung would call this shadow inflation. You disown the middle truths of who you are and split your identity into extremes, exalting one and exiling the other. And the exile doesn't disappear, it festers. So you force yourself into unrealistic ideals, and every time you fall short, and you always will, the self-hatred deepens. But here's the truth. Your humanity isn't found in being either or. It's found in the beautifully broken and honest space of both and. You're both a work in progress and complete as you are. You're both strong and hurting. You're both deeply flawed and fundamentally worthy. Then there's overgeneralization, the trap that takes one moment and lets it define the rest. You get rejected, and now I always ruin things. You didn't make it once, now I'll never succeed. But this isn't logic. It's trauma whispering through memory. Alfred Adler believed that early experiences shape core beliefs, an unchallenged inner rulebook we carry into adulthood. That one time you felt small becomes I am small. That one failure becomes I am failure. And every new experience is filtered through that emotional lens until you lose the ability to see today for what it really is. Overgeneralization doesn't predict the future. It just repeats the past until your soul packs up and says, there's no point. And once you rely on distortion to interpret the world, you start missing what matters most. Enter mental filtering, the silent thief of joy. The part of you that stares straight into a room full of love and only sees the one cold shoulder. 10 small wins? Irrelevant. One mistake? That's your identity. It's like your mind walks through a blooming field and only picks out the weeds. Erich Fromm would call this a symptom of a person disconnected from being and enslaved to having. You don't see reality. You see what your fear is hungry to notice. Your mind becomes a suspicion machine, constantly scanning for what's wrong, never resting in what's right. But joy and fulfillment are not found in perfection. They begin when you notice what's already good, even when it's not enough. And then just when something good actually does happen, the next distortion steps in to ruin it. You disqualify the positive. They only said that because they feel bad for me. Sure, I succeeded, but it was just luck. You diminish your light because deep down you don't feel entitled to shine. Maybe you were taught to earn love through pain, hard work, sacrifice. So when love or success arrives freely, you assume it must be fake. Freud might say your superego is punishing you for stepping outside the comfort zone of suffering. But no, my friend, you don't have to justify your joy. You're allowed to feel proud, allowed to keep the compliment. You're not an imposter. You're a soul starved of validation, finally being fed. Another voice arrives. This time it knows how to sound like certainty. You start predicting the worst, fortune-telling. Or even worse, you think you can read minds. She didn't say hi. She must think I'm ugly. This interview is going to be a disaster. I just know it. Viktor Frankl, survivor of Auschwitz and soul whisperer of suffering, taught us the power of the space between stimulus and response. That space is choice. But when you jump to conclusions, you collapse that space. You skip curiosity and jump into condemnation. You don't question fear, you obey it. But here's what no one tells you. Your assumptions are usually just your trauma rehearsing itself. Stay with the discomfort long enough to ask, what else could this mean? And you'll discover the future isn't written in your fear unless you let it be. The mind loves to dramatize. So of course it magnifies the things that hurt and minimizes the things that heal. A single awkward conversation becomes proof you're unacceptable. A life milestone you worked years for? Just not a big deal. This distortion is anxiety's oldest tool. Keep you so focused on the disaster that you forget the dignity of your own achievement. It's also a form of self-sabotage. Perkins once said we minimize our triumphs not because they're small, but because they're sacred. We don't know how to live life that doesn't revolve around suffering. But suffering isn't a job, it's a chapter. And if every little wound becomes a tragedy, you're not healing, you're rehearsing victimhood. Speaking of rehearsals, your emotions perform 1,000 shows a day. And sometimes emotional reasoning convinces you that just because you feel something, it must be true. I feel unwanted, so I must be unwanted. I feel lost, so life must be meaningless. But emotions are not facts. They are temporary sensations colored by age-old beliefs and unprocessed wounds. Carl Jung said that emotions are the language of the unconscious. They point to something, but they are not conclusions. Learn to hold your feelings like you would hold a crying child, not as gospel, but as guidance. And in doing that, you return your mind to its throne. Then we come to should statements, the tyranny of the internal taskmaster. I should be further by now. I should never feel this way. I should be happy. These invisible demands create constant guilt, and guilt drains energy from healing. Maslow warned us about this urge to live according to other people's values. Every should is a leash, and you are not a pet of perfection. Try this instead. Replace should with could. Watch how possibility replaces pressure. Could is freedom. Could is choice. Could is you evolving on your terms. But distortions don't stop there. They get nastier. They begin to reshape your entire identity. You label yourself. Not I failed, but I'm a loser. Not I'm struggling, but I'm disturbed. The inner critic turns from messenger to jailer. Jung believed that the ego fears the unknown more than it fears suffering, so it latches on to labels for control. But labels become cages. The moment you assign yourself a name based on pain, you kill off the version of you that could have grown from it. You're not your worst moment. You're not even your best. You are the space between and beyond all of it. Still with me? Then feel this one. Personalization. Someone's angry. Must be your fault. Partner's sad. It's because of you. Someone leaves. I wasn't lovable enough. This isn't empathy. It's distortion. Adler told us many suffer because they confuse their sphere of influence with their sphere of responsibility. You are not responsible for how others feel. You're only responsible for how you show up. Carrying everyone's burdens doesn't make you noble. It burns you out and keeps them from growing. Don't confuse self-sacrifice with love. Love without boundaries is abuse of yourself. Control fallacies come next. Some wander around feeling completely helpless, believing the world controls them, external control. Others believe they must control everything, including how others feel, internal control. Both are illusions. Maslow argued that humans reach self-actualization not through control, but through alignment with the truth. You're not a puppet, but you're not the god of the universe either. The sweet spot is agency, the courage to influence what you can, and the wisdom to release what you can't. Let me pause and ask you something. Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you try, life just won't give you a break? Like you've done everything right and still ended up broken, alone, or empty? That's the fallacy of fairness, the aching belief that life owes you something if you play by the rules, that hard work guarantees reward, that good people always win. But Viktor Frankl would call this the trap of expectation. In the darkest of places, he didn't survive by insisting that life be fair. He survived by insisting that he would still choose meaning, no matter how merciless the storm. If you tie your inner peace to external fairness, you'll roller coaster through joy and resentment. But if you root your soul in the pursuit of meaning, in love, depth, honesty, you become unshakable. Then there's the one that ruins relationships faster than any other. The need to be right, always, even if it costs intimacy. Proof over peace. Jung said the ego resists annihilation, and nothing annihilates the ego like being wrong. But here's a truth that will save your relationships. Being wrong doesn't make you small. Being stubborn does. The desire to be right isn't wisdom, it's fear wearing glasses. True intelligence is not about knowing everything, but about being brave enough to be humbled. And finally, the heavens reward fallacy. The addiction to self-sacrifice. The distorted belief that the more you suffer, the more life will bless you later. But suffering is not currency, and pain doesn't purchase paradise. Frankl taught us that we don't earn meaning through pain, we find meaning within it. You do not deserve pain for being kind. You do not become worthy through burnout. Rest is not a betrayal of the mission. It is the mission. You are allowed to feel joy now, not just after your work is done, but because you exist. If you've made it this far, I want to know who truly understood the message. Leave the phrase, "I am not my thoughts," in the comments, and let's see how many of you really grasp what it means to reclaim the throne of your mind, to be both the warrior and the witness. If this video made you question something, if it made you see things from a different angle, like and subscribe, because this is just the beginning. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, the mind is the battlefield. Freedom begins from within. Have you ever found yourself walking away from a conversation feeling heavy, confused, almost like a little piece of your soul was chipped away, but you just couldn't explain why? Or maybe you've had someone in your life who seemed kind, giving, even loving, but over time you began to lose your peace, your confidence, your clarity, maybe even your identity. Carl Jung, the legendary Swiss psychiatrist who carved the modern roadmap of analytical psychology, warned us that evil doesn't always come wearing a mask. Sometimes it comes wearing a smile, and sometimes it doesn't even know it's evil. The most dangerous people, he said, are not the ones with bad intentions, but the ones who refuse to look in the mirror of their own souls. This isn't about paranoia. This is about protection, about survival, about knowing when someone in your life is eroding you, not elevating you, about digging deep, right into your intuition, the internal alarm system that too many of us have been taught to silence. Carl Jung believed that the psyche is a universe of hidden forces, light and darkness, ego and shadow, persona and soul, and the people around us. They can either nourish the light or awaken the darkness. Some people will make you doubt your sanity while telling you they love you. Some will manipulate you not with threats but with sympathy. Others may not even know they're dangerous. They just leave devastation wherever they go. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." So what happens when the people closest to us are completely unconscious? What happens when they've refused to confront their own darkness, and instead they feed off yours? What if the damage they do isn't always loud and violent, but subtle, slow, corrosive. Today we uncover the 6 psychological profiles, 6 personalities, 6 dangerous archetypes who can derail your emotional, spiritual, and even physical well-being. Some may be obvious. Others are heartbreakingly deceiving. You may have loved some of them. You may have been one of them in the past. What matters is understanding the cost of staying connected to people who exist in emotional shadows, and the priceless freedom that comes when you finally walk away. The first kind of dangerous person Jung warned about is the one who projects their shadow. They are deeply uncomfortable with their own flaws, insecurities, jealousy, rage, and emotional pain. So instead of confronting or healing it, they do something far worse. They project that darkness outward onto you. These people live in denial of their own unconscious wounds. Everything they can't accept in themselves, they pin on somebody else. If they feel envious, they'll accuse you of showing off. If they're manipulative, they'll claim that you're controlling. They pick out the traits they hate most about themselves and convince you that they belong to you. And the worst part, it's often so subtle. They gaslight you. They make you apologize. They twist reality until up feels like down, good feels shameful, and you begin to lose confidence in your own perception. You find yourself walking on eggshells, explaining your intentions over and over, second-guessing your every move. You begin to internalize their shadow as if it's your own. You stop shining. You stop standing strong. You start shrinking. These people don't just wound you emotionally. They break down your identity, piece by fearful piece. To survive such a person is to reclaim your mind, your self-trust, and your ability to draw a hard boundary. Because they're not interested in truth, they're only interested in escape from themselves. The second type is deceptively charming, socially acceptable, and often even admired. This is the persona-obsessed individual. To Carl Jung, the persona was the social mask a person wears to present themselves in a way that society will approve of. The real danger begins when someone becomes attached to that mask. It defines them. They do not have a solid inner self, only a performance. These are the influencers who appear perfect but are emotionally vacant. The martyrs, always sacrificing, asking nothing of others, but carrying hidden bitterness like a ticking bomb. The polished professionals who can command a room but cannot look you in the eye when the surface breaks. Their entire being is presentation, and behind it, often a deep chasm of disconnection, shame, and fear. Try to connect and you'll find nothing solid, just recycled lines, conditional emotions, hollow comfort. When you show vulnerability, it makes them uncomfortable, even angry, because it threatens the persona they're clinging to. If you try to go deeper, they change the subject. But here's where the danger creeps in, because at first it feels safe to be around them. Nice, refined, controlled. You'll probably even look up to them. But over time, your soul begins starving. You'll realize these people cannot love you deeply because they have no connection to their authentic self. You bond with their mask, not their heart. And if you're a deep person, this dynamic will leave you feeling emptied, disoriented, like you're screaming into a canyon and hearing nothing back. You start questioning whether you're too sensitive. You're not. You're just dealing with someone who's terrified to take the mask off, even in love. Next, we meet the psychic vampire. You may not even see them coming. They aren't flashy. They don't always intend harm, but they will drain you, slowly, consistently, deeply. We've all met this person. Maybe it's the friend who always has a problem, always. And somehow every conversation becomes about them. They pull your attention, your empathy, your energy, until you're completely exhausted and they feel so satisfied. Or maybe it's that quiet person who constantly plays the victim. They speak in sighs, in emotional hints, forcing you to pry and care and overextend. They never ask directly, but their presence demands your emotional service. Sometimes the psychic vampire is flamboyant, dramatic, confrontational, always angry, always fighting imaginary villains, and you're swept up in their chaos. But sometimes they're soft, tragic, even sweet. In both cases, the result is the same. You get tired, and your fatigue isn't physical, it's spiritual. This happens because these individuals are emotionally undeveloped. Their survival depends on others regulating their emotions. They often suffered in childhood. They feel abandoned by the world. The problem is they haven't healed. They've just learned how to survive by draining others. And when you start setting boundaries, they weaponize guilt. You hear things like, "I thought you cared about me," or, "I guess you're just lucky you don't have to deal with this." Never-ending leaks of energy, leaks of guilt, leaks of compassion, until you're depleted, and they just bounce to the next source. Jung taught that the unconscious mind seeks balance, and when a person refuses to heal, their mind will reach out for anything, anyone to relieve their pressure. That much emotional desperation becomes predatory, and it will take everything from you if you're not awake to it. Now imagine someone who rescues you, emotionally, financially, psychologically. Someone who steps in like a hero at your lowest moment. Maybe they take care of you during a breakup, help you through your depression, hold you when no one else was there, and for a while you cherish them. But slowly, you begin to grow. You find your voice again. Maybe you don't need them the same way anymore. Suddenly their kindness curdles into control. They say things like, "After everything I've done for you," or, "Do you even appreciate me?" They start criticizing your choices, undermining your confidence. Isn't that ironic? The one who saved you now resents your healing. This, Jung would point out, is the manipulative savior. They didn't step in for love. They stepped in for control disguised as compassion. That control only works as long as you're broken, dependent. The moment you rise, their identity starts to unravel. Because your strength threatens their love narrative. The more independent you become, the less useful they feel. And instead of celebrating your healing, they sabotage it. They need to feel like the most important figure in your life. That their worth is based not on who they are, but what they've done for you. This is where guilt becomes their tool and obligation becomes your chain. These individuals aren't always aware of their manipulation. But healing around them is like walking through mud. They want you just whole enough to function, but broken enough to stay. And that's not love. That's emotional colonization. And the longer you stay, the more you begin to confuse rescuing for intimacy. You forget that real intimacy honors freedom, not dependency. Then there is a type that has devastated families, broken nations, and hijacked entire generations. It's not flashy, it's not loud or dramatic, but it is insidiously powerful. The moral fanatic. These people don't think, they believe. Deeply, absolutely. They believe their perspective is the only version of truth. They believe their righteousness justifies everything. And here's the kicker. They don't even realize how dangerous they are. Jung warned intensely of this personality because it leads directly to cruelty disguised as virtue. A moral fanatic isn't just someone with strong values. That's admirable. The fanatic is someone who believes those values make them superior. Someone who thinks they have the right to decide who's worthy, who's pure, who belongs. These people speak in absolutes. They can't handle complexity. They can't say maybe or both. Everything is either sacred or evil, and the moment you challenge them, you become the enemy. You don't disagree with moral fanatics. You get demonized, canceled, exiled. Jung believed this archetype was at the heart of mass manipulation, because when people are certain, without empathy, they'll commit terrible acts while thinking they're heroes. Parents can become moral fanatics. So can teachers, lovers, preachers. They use doctrine instead of dialogue. And when you express another truth, they don't listen. They punish. No curiosity, no softness. Only war. Be careful with these people. They will make you doubt your humanity just to maintain their sense of order. And their justice will always have a blade. Lastly, and most painfully, comes the one who never meant to hurt you, but did, over and over again. This is the unconscious destroyer. These people are not villains, but they're dangerous nonetheless. They love you, but only from their unhealed places. They show up, they try, but their actions don't match their intentions. Maybe they lie, then cry when they get caught. Maybe they cheat, then say they were confused. Maybe they neglect your needs, invalidate your feelings, and yet insist, "I'm trying my best." And in their world, maybe they are. But effort doesn't equal safety. Intent doesn't equal healing. And trauma is not an excuse to damage someone else. These people truly hate hurting you, but they keep doing it. They hate seeing your tears, but they keep causing them. They cannot hold emotional complexity. They collapse under pressure. They avoid accountability like fire. And because they're sometimes kind, sometimes sweet, you keep convincing yourself they're doing their best. Maybe tomorrow it will be different. But it's not. It never is. The damage piles up. And with every transgression, every emotional bruise, your self-worth gets smaller. They don't shatter you with violence, but with slow, confusing sorrow. Their chaos becomes your caretaker role. And suddenly you're sacrificing peace just to keep the connection alive. Jung would say these people live entirely ruled by their unconscious mind, meaning they are victims of their own emotional storms, and you become lightning's unfortunate target. So what do you do about these people? Carl Jung didn't share these archetypes to turn you into a skeptic. He shared them because awareness is the beginning of freedom. You don't protect yourself by being harsh or cold. You protect yourself by being awake. You choose boundaries. You honor your gut. When something doesn't feel right, it's not. When someone keeps hurting you while claiming to care, they don't. When you feel spiritually drained, muted, controlled, or erased, you leave, because continuing to love someone who's destroying you isn't compassion, it's self-abandonment. You've been taught to feel guilty for protecting yourself. That ends today. We all carry shadows. We all wear masks. We've all projected our pain or overstepped a boundary in moments of immaturity. The difference: conscious people grow. Dangerous people resist. The ones you need to avoid are not those who've been broken, but those who refuse to become whole. And now you see clearly. Let this message reach someone who needs it. Share this with someone still entangled. Drop a comment if you've lived this, escaped it, or are still healing. You're not alone. You're not crazy. And your peace is not too much to ask for. Thank you for watching. And if your soul stirred, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay with us for more psychological awakenings founded in the timeless genius of Carl Jung. You owe no one your destruction. Choose peace, choose truth, and protect your light. Because the world doesn't just wound through violence, it wounds through silence, performance, and shadow. But the moment you see it is the moment you begin to reclaim yourself. So now tell me, are you ready to stop surviving other people's damage and start protecting your own peace? If you've made it this far, I want to know who truly understood the message. Leave the phrase "clarity is protection" in the comments, and let's see who's ready to walk away from unconscious chaos with conscious strength. If this video made something click, if it helped you name the unspoken or remember your worth, like and subscribe, because this is only the beginning of your healing. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, you don't exist to carry the weight. Have you ever looked someone directly in the eye and wondered what it would take to make them do anything you wanted? No force, no aggression, just silence, suggestion, presence. Have you ever sat quietly in a room full of people and realized how easy it would be to guide their thoughts with the right words, the right smile, the right manipulation cloaked in empathy? This isn't science fiction. This isn't witchcraft or mysticism. This is power, and not the kind chained to position, money, or luck. I'm talking about the purest, most unnerving form of power, the power over other human beings. And if there was ever a man who understood this better than anyone else, it was Niccolo Machiavelli. But this story isn't about history, it's about you. Because as we unlock the world of Machiavelli's influence, the dark, seductive art of manipulation, you'll begin to see echoes in your own life. Echoes in relationships, in jobs, in friendships, in the way someone made you feel insecure and then comforted you just enough to keep you loyal. You'll realize you thought you were in control, but maybe, just maybe, you've always been the one dancing on someone else's invisible strings. Machiavelli didn't invent manipulation, he revealed it. He took the masks off human behavior and exposed what leaders, lovers, politicians, and enemies have always done. He didn't apologize for it. He didn't sugarcoat it. That's why his book, The Prince, has been banned, burned, denounced, and studied by the most powerful individuals in history. Because buried in his words is a dangerous truth. People are far easier to control than they'd like to think. And the first rule of control: never let them know they're being controlled. What makes people predictable is emotion. Machiavelli knew that logic rarely drives decisions. People are not ruled by facts. They're ruled by fear, love, insecurity, status, desire. And the person who understands this, who really understands it, not just intellectually but strategically, can walk into any room and own it. Not by shouting, not by bragging, but by tapping into those hidden drives beneath the surface. You don't need to argue to win. You only need to see where the cracks are, the little weaknesses in someone's identity, and speak directly into those fractures with confidence, precision, and purpose. That's where control begins. Real manipulation is silent, invisible. It doesn't feel like manipulation. In fact, the most brilliant form of control makes the target feel free. They'll laugh with you, agree with you, thank you, swear it was their idea. That's the genius of it. Because the deeper you go, the more you realize people are desperate to belong, desperate to feel seen, desperate to be safe. And the manipulator doesn't force their will. They offer those needs just enough to keep the leash on without pressure. That's why manipulation often feels like affection, why we confuse control for love, and why the most controlling people can be the ones we're closest to. Machiavelli understood this long before social media, long before clickbait political campaigns, psychological marketing, and algorithmic influence. He saw clearly centuries ago that humans crave reassurance more than truth, that if you can offer people clarity in the fog, even if it's a lie, they'll follow you into the darkness, relieved that someone finally seems certain. People don't want leaders. They want saviors. They want someone to tell them who the enemy is, who they should be, and why everything is going to be okay. You don't have to be right. You just have to be convincing. And here's the cold truth Machiavelli laid bare. It is better to be feared than loved if one cannot be both. Sounds cruel, doesn't it? But if you're honest with yourself, deep down you already know it's true. Love is fragile. Love fades. Love forgives. But fear sticks. Fear controls. Fear makes people second-guess rebellion, stutter before betrayal, hesitate before they leave you. If you want loyalty without conditions, Machiavelli says harness fear, not rage, not abuse, but respect so sharp it cuts the thought of disobedience at the root. Still, fear alone isn't enough. The most effective control is built on a foundation of admiration and subtle intimidation. You must seem fair, but a little dangerous, gentle, but capable of cruelty. People follow those they cannot fully predict. If you're too nice, you'll be used. If you're too cruel, you'll be overthrown. But if you walk the edge, if they don't know which version of you they'll get, they remain on guard. And that's exactly where you want them. Unbalanced, cautious, dependent. The manipulator never shows all their cards. They compliment others, but never excessively. They express emotion only when it serves a purpose. Every move is calculated, every silence is loaded. You're not reacting, you're orchestrating. When someone insults you publicly, you don't argue. You laugh, you dismiss, you maintain mystery. Because in the game of control, certainty is a weakness. The moment people can predict your response, you've already given them power. So how do you begin wielding Machiavellian influence in real life? You start small. Master presence, Presence is the invisible field around you that makes people self-conscious the moment you're near. It's body language, voice tone, eye contact, silence. Speak less. Think more. When you do speak, ensure every word carries intention. People listen more when you talk less, because silence makes people wonder what you're thinking, and wondering creates power imbalance. You're staying calm, in control. They're guessing, trying to keep up, eager to fill the awkward gaps. That's when you get inside their head. Next, observe what people fear. Everyone wears a mask, but behind every confident smile, there's insecurity. Behind every rebel, trauma. Behind every ego, abandonment. Learn people. Study them. Mirror them without obvious mimicry. Make them feel understood. Once someone believes you truly get them, they instinctively lower their guard. That's when you plant suggestions. Not commands, suggestions. Phrases like, "You probably already thought of this," or "This might be crazy, but..." These frames allow your ideas to enter softly, almost subconsciously. And because the idea didn't feel imposed, they accept it. Sometimes they even believe it was theirs. That's manipulation at its highest form, not control through domination, but through influence that feels like self-discovery. You'll also understand status. People are obsessed with hierarchy, even when they pretend not to be. Spark admiration by creating contrast. Don't talk constantly about yourself. Let others do it for you. Hold details back. Let mystery create scarcity. Occasionally contradict expectations, not to confuse, but to command fascination. One day warm, one day reserved. One day playful, the next stoic. The unpredictability keeps them hooked. They want consistency, but they respect complexity more. Remember, the longer they try to figure you out, the tighter your grip gets. On an emotional level, people are rarely loyal to logic. They're loyal to how you make them feel about themselves. Tell someone they're essential, frame them as unique, and they'll walk through fire for you. Not because they love you, but because they love who they believe they're becoming beside you. Building this illusion is the key to emotional control. Show someone a mirror of their potential, and make yourself the reflection. Is it dark? Yes, but reflect. Haven't we all been victims of this before? Haven't we followed people who made us feel special until they didn't? Haven't we stayed in friendships or relationships where we only felt powerful through association? We romanticize control when it's dressed as security. That's why some of the most brilliant manipulators are adored, not feared. You think they're lifting you up until they disappear and you're left empty, wondering why you feel like you're missing something you never truly had. There's a reason Machiavelli's name became synonymous with cunning. But was he evil? Or was he simply honest about human nature? It's easy to demonize manipulation, but ask yourself, are you really free from it? When you're negotiating a raise, flirting at a bar, calming down an angry friend, even parenting a child, aren't you subtly shaping behavior? Strategically choosing words, masking tone, bending truth. So where do we draw the line? The truth is, the line isn't clear, because the difference between influence and manipulation is often just intent. Are you guiding others to help them or to control them? Are you inspiring it or rewriting their identity to fit your needs? Machiavelli never cared. He simply said, "This is how people are. Morality comes second to survival. If you want to be liked, speak to the ego. If you want to be trusted, show humility, but never too much. And if you want to be followed, promise safety, but always remain just out of reach." That's the formula. Don't chase. Retreat occasionally to create longing. Don't explain more than necessary. Mystery makes people lean in. Don't dominate, guide, and don't beg for loyalty. Make them feel disloyal by even considering leaving you. All this leads to the most haunting conclusion of all. The most powerful control doesn't look like control at all. It looks like love. It looks like admiration. It looks like freedom. But secretly, it strips the other person of their ability to think without you. And when you reach that level of influence, there's only one question to ask yourself. Do you really want this? Because to control others, you must also disconnect from part of your humanity. You cannot need what they need. You must rise above emotion to observe it clinically. That's the weight Machiavelli never tells you about. The existential risk. Because once you learn to pull strings, it's hard to stop. People become puzzles. Situations become games. And worst of all, you lose the ability to believe others aren't doing the same to you. So now, the moment of truth. Have you been manipulated? Or have you been the manipulator all along? Are you the ruler of your world or just another subject in someone else's? If this made your chest tighten, maybe that's the truth waking up inside you. You see, Machiavelli didn't write The Prince to create monsters. He wrote it so that you could see them, understand them, recognize them, and maybe become a little smarter in the process. But now that you have this knowledge, what will you do with it? Will you put it down, afraid of what it turns you into? Or will you sharpen it and quietly begin to rule? Are you in control? Or is that just what someone wants you to believe? Because in the end, it's not about who speaks the loudest or who craves attention the most. It's about who understands the game being played in silence. Power isn't always loud. It doesn't announce itself. True influence doesn't scream. It whispers, softly and subtly, into the cracks of people's insecurities and desires. The world doesn't reward the most moral. It rewards the most strategic. History remembers the ones who moved with purpose, not permission. The ones who didn't just adapt to the rules of the game, they rewrote them. So now the real question you must ask yourself is not whether you can play the game, but whether you dare to truly win it. And if you've made it this far, really stayed through till this moment, then I believe you saw something, felt something that broke through the noise. If so, I want to know who truly understood. Leave the phrase "influence wears a smile" in the comments below, so I know who's listening with more than ears, who's thinking beyond the surface. If this video made you feel unsettled, if it pulled back the curtain on something you've always suspected but couldn't quite describe, then let that awareness grow. Like this video, subscribe, because this chilling awakening is only the beginning. There's so much more beneath what you think you know. And before this ends, remember one final truth. The most powerful person in the room is never the one speaking the most. It's the one everyone else is unconsciously watching, waiting, reacting to. So don't just be another piece in someone else's strategy. They sit beside you. They laugh with you. They share your secrets, your wins, your pain. Their arms feel warm, their words sound sweet, and their loyalty seems certain. But beneath the surface, something is off. Just slightly. Something you can't quite explain. A quiet inconsistency in how they support you. A hidden tension every time you talk about your dreams. At first you brush it off. Maybe it's you, maybe it's stress, maybe you're being paranoid. But it lingers. It gnaws at you. Until one day you realize it. They don't truly want you to win. They want you dependent. We're not talking about haters. We're not talking about random toxic people from the outside. This is more dangerous than that. This is someone who has learned how to act like your friend, while secretly operating as your opponent. This is about that twisted dynamic hiding in thousands of relationships all over the world, the frenemy. And if you don't spot them early, they will dismantle your confidence, fracture your self-image, and poison your mind, all while never lifting a blade, because they don't need to cut you. They only need to nudge you, leave you second-guessing, create just enough doubt that your own fear does the rest. Now that's real power. That's real strategy. That is pure Machiavelli. The most dangerous enemies are not the ones who declare war. It's the ones who camouflage it as care. People who don't just want to see you fail. They want to stand close enough to watch it happen, so they can call it love while they smile at your fall. This is real social warfare. It's not fought with weapons. It's psychological, strategic, calculated, A slow erosion of your spirit disguised as a relationship. But you don't see the cracks because it all lives in the unspoken moments. The passive jabs, the backhanded praise, the empty silences when you need support. And by the time you finally trust your gut, the damage is already done. Let's not fool ourselves. Machiavelli understood this darkness intimately. He wasn't just a philosopher, he was a realist. He saw people not as what they pretended to be, but as what they were when no one was watching. Friends are great for stability, but Machiavelli warned about something far more potent. Friends who threaten your emotional power. Friends who know your inner world and use it against you. Frenemies who smile while they starve you of real support, of real protection. So how do you know? How do you decode their subtle warfare before it's too late? It starts with the emotions they trigger, the discomfort you can't place, the exhaustion that follows their presence, the invisible weight every time you tell them good news. You want them to be excited for you. You hope they'll be proud, but instead, it feels like they're tolerating your success, waiting for you to mess up. And then, they pretend to be your rescue. It's sick, but it's real. These are the insidious signs you're dealing with a frenemy. They only show up when you're losing. They're there when life punches you in the gut. They send messages when you're crying. Call you when you've just been dumped. Comment on your sadness like it's a shared ritual. You'll get through this, they say. I'm always here. But fast forward to the good moments, the promotion, the engagement, the career breakthrough, and suddenly they're busy. They ghost. The congratulations feel forced, artificial, delayed, and generic. It's not that they forgot. It's that your rise threatens their own comfort. When you're broken, they feel useful, even superior. Your discomfort reassures them that they're not falling behind. Your darkness makes them feel a little brighter. It's perverse but undeniable. The emotional predator wrapped in the costume of a caretaker. In private, they'll say, "You're going to be huge. You're amazing." But strangely, they never seem to share your wins with others. You write a book? No post about it. Get featured in an article? They're silent. Get a life-changing opportunity? Nothing. They minimize your light around others because deep down they don't want people to see you shine. Because you shining makes them feel like a shadow. They won't admit it. They may not even fully realize it, but emotionally, they need you small. They need you digestible. They need to keep you inside a version of yourself that makes them comfortable. And when you evolve, when success sharpens your voice or expands your presence, they redefine you as arrogant, attention-seeking, too much. It's not that you've changed. It's that your growth has exposed their stagnancy. Frenemies are notorious for copying your style, your slang, even your mannerisms. At first it flatters you. You laugh it off. We're so alike, you say. But it gets darker. Because soon after they start imitating, they mock. Suddenly the traits they borrowed are twisted into insults. You take fashion risks. You're always trying too hard. You work hard in silence. You're so dramatic. Nobody's watching. The same things they once admired become weapons. That's not coincidence. That's resentment. They don't just want to be like you. They want to replace you. But when they see they can't, they use shame to shrink your uniqueness so no one else notices what makes you special. Ever hear a friend say, "I'm just being honest"? Frenemies hide judgment behind the mask of honesty. If I were you, I wouldn't aim so high. You know people might judge you. Or, you should tone it down a little, it makes people uncomfortable. These aren't suggestions. They're psychological chains. Little pieces of doubt designed to reprogram your inner narrative so that you pull yourself back down. That's how psychological warfare works. No attack, no blow, just words. Strategic words that plant guilt, fear, confusion. Because a frenemy doesn't destroy you, they make sure you do it. And this is key. Most frenemies understand you deeply. They're not random people. They've sat in your pain, held your tears, heard the midnight phone calls where you fell apart. They know you're